The Psyche of Success, the video blog that helps you reach the next level. Education, entertainment, and motivation to help you and your team succeed in business and in life. Subscribe, share, and learn. Welcome to The Psyche of Success with your host, Jody Holland.
Welcome to the Psyche of Success. I am today sitting with Adam Beckner, the owner, operator, proprietor of My Blank Space Studio, where you can create anything that you want to related to audio and video. We're going to be talking today about his version of success and fulfillment and how you find that soul of success. So thanks for being on the podcast. Make sure you do subscribe. You can see in the screen there ways that you can get connected with us. Follow us on all of the socials, as well as make sure you reach out if you have any questions. All right. Welcome, Adam. You want to give us a little bit of background about who you are?
Yeah, first thing, I just want to thank you for having me on the podcast. Psyche of Success was, really interesting to listen to with Damon West.
Yeah.
The Be a Coffee Bean.
Yep.
I told myself I was just going to listen to a little bit of it because I wanted to read the book. And, 30 minutes later, I was in it. And I was like, well, might as well finish it now.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, that was a fun podcast. I met that guy in Angelo State University. Mm-hmm. I guess about a month and a half ago now, but yeah. So you are the owner of My Blank Space Studio. Tell me a little bit about the studio. I mean, obviously I want to tell you guys, this is where I record, is at My Blank Space Studio. It's fantastic, but I want to let you talk a little bit about that.
So it's a full audio production studio. Obviously we specialize in podcast production, the managing of the podcast, the editing of it. And then, something that's kind of fun for me is, I get to work with the clients on, managing their brand basically.
Yeah, figuring out what image they want to create in the minds of their customer.
Exactly. So that's kind of, filling the blank space.
There you go.
So that's kind of a...
Yeah, and I liked the name of it because the blank space thing kind of caught me. I have a book called The Smart Ass for Your BS.
Yeah.
And the ASS and BS are acronyms, Smart Accelerated Success System for your business strategy. So I was very drawn to the name My Blank Space or My BS Studio. I thought that was a very nice play on words. Yeah. So I want to ask you a few questions related to the way that you view life and the way that you view success. I believe that as we go through from generation to generation, we're redefining what it means to be successful. So if you were to define success for you, what is it that makes you feel successful?
This is honestly a very loaded question because there's like so many different ways that you could go with it. You reach that certain age and like, yeah, I know what success is, Mom. Like, okay, well, what is it, honey? I just want to have a lot of money. But
I think that's how we all start.
And
right
then,
there.
yeah, and then you think about it, and you're like, "Well, that doesn't really do anything for me." Mm-mm. And so, what I kind of learned about with having money is that it really just gives you kind of an opportunity to kind of do the things that you like to do.
Yeah.
And so I actually learned that lesson through Scooter Braun. Manages huge superstars.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to a podcast with him in it. And, that was one of the things that he was talking about is, whenever he, gained all his wealth and stuff, he realized he was allowed to be happy because he was able to do the things that he wanted to do. So that's kind of one of those things that I kind of like to think about, especially if I get like in a stress situation, anything like that.
Yeah.
So, kind of going back to how I define success, for me personally, I think it's just all depending on happiness more than anything.
So it's figuring out how to be happy with the things that you do have in life, whether you're starting out or you've been there for a really long time. I think that I agree with that, by the way, but I think when you look at the fulfillment side of success, that's what goes beyond just the money side. But I think we normally just define it that way. We go, well, if I had all the money in the world, then I would be happy.
Exactly, yeah.
And then you wake up one day, Jim Carrey, I mean, look at what he's been going through, and you have all the money in the world, and you're like, yeah, that sucks. Yeah. That's not happiness. What do I find?
Unfortunately, we read a lot of stories like that of, famous actors, just going into the mental health institutions and stuff. And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, or just getting rid of all their money once they have it all, and they going, well, that didn't make me happy, so I'll get rid of it. Well, it isn't the money, like you said, that makes you happy or unhappy. It's you being happy or unhappy, and then the money just gives you freedom.
Yeah. So I was actually I was in a lecture today, and the professor started talking about the if-then model, right? And so I forgot the guy's name. He did it in a TED Talk about the if-then model. And what it was is there was basically 3 components to it. And what the first component was, striving, or not, I wouldn't say striving, but focusing more on the outcome.
Yeah.
The second component was focusing on the process.
Yeah.
You know, living the process instead of just expecting the outcome, you know, which goes back to the money thing. If we have money, then it's easy.
Yeah.
You know, so then the third component thing man, he said it so fast that it was kind of so hard to catch of what he said, but it was almost like that's how you break through between those two, you know, outcomes. And
so outcome, process, and then I don't know what his third one was, but I would say, are you moving forward? Momentum, something like that.
Yeah, it had something to do kind of along those lines.
Dr. Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, and she talks about in there that if you have a growth mindset, then you don't judge yourself based on just the outcome. You talk about the process and you talk about where you're going, but people who have that fixed mindset believe that if they fail at something, that's the definition of them, and then they're truly unhappy.
Yeah. And a funny thing was through that TED Talk is he took a baby of learning how to walk and how the baby, you know, follows the process and is not expecting the outcome of like, hey, I can just walk. But anyways, what he was saying is that you don't see the baby, you know, just give up walking. You don't have to take that baby to a counselor to talk about it falling down 11 times in that day. The baby's just focused on that process. Yeah. And eventually the outcome is it can walk, you know?
Well, and you also don't look at the baby and go, you little twit. You tried twice. You suck at walking.
Yeah,
Quit it.
Exactly. And I feel like that's where a lot of people do get lost is, you know, paying more attention to what it's going to be instead of just, you know, it's just like the big Gary Vee thing, you know, work really hard in the micro and then
the macro takes care of itself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's true. So when you think about, okay, you've got your definition of success, it's finding your way to be happy. The money and the things like that provide more options and more freedom in that pursuit of happiness, but it's you find a way to be happy and love the process. So love what you're doing. If you think about the things that prevent you from being successful, the things that stress you out or keep you up at night, what are some of those things that you worry about that you think probably a lot of other business owners worry about as well?
I'd say staying productive.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that's a really big part for me. Like I said, just staying productive, making sure that, you know, I'm trying to engage with, you know, my audience on social media. Yeah. And then I do manage, you know, a couple other companies' social medias as well. So my big thing is to make sure I have content for them. Because if I don't have content for them, then I kind of lose the job. Yeah. You know, so that's kind of the big thing.
So it's kind of stay productive as well as stay successful or relevant in doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people worry about that. So what do you do to make sure that you stay on track or you stay productive during the day?
So I started making spreadsheets. Okay. And I basically map out an entire month. Yes, a month. And what I do is on, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I write down, you know, different content ideas that I can post on that day. So then, you know, I do all my designs. Yeah. So then I just kind of, it's just like filling the gap or you're not filling the gap, you know, point A to point B, same thing, you know, so like this content graphic is going to be posted on Thursday or whatever, because that's what fits. So I already have, you know, content already basically pre-made.
You have a game plan and you report to you as a manager.
Yes.
And I think that's a lot of people struggle in the entrepreneurial world that they wake up and they're like, oh, what am I going to do today? Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing else. Yeah. So that daily action plan, I've always told people from an entrepreneurial perspective, you've got 3 to 5 things you got to do every day to be successful. I don't know what they are, but there's always 3 to 5 things that if you execute on those things every day, everything else takes care of itself. And so for me, I have to learn something. So every morning, first thing in the morning, I spend about a half an hour watching TED Talks, reading books, whatever it is to kind of get started before I even leave the house. Second thing I've got to do every day is I got to teach somebody something that I know, because people are paying for the wisdom or the psychology that I can pass on to them. And the third thing is I need to invoice somebody for it. So if I learn something, teach something, and send a bill, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be successful. So I think with yours, what you're doing, mapping out the content, it's a great idea because you're managing people's production and people's content. And if you don't have a rhythm for that, you're not going to be successful. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like another thing that I've kind of learned as well is, you got to make time for yourself,
Yes.
You got to learn to make that time. And, the things that I do to kind of fill that time is, I do my own podcast. I also do live streaming stuff as well. And then I'm trying to throw in a little bit of vlogging for YouTube,
Yeah.
And that's not just for the fun of it, but that gives me, knowledge. So that goes back to, you got to learn something every day.
So you got something to present to people that kind of, so it's learning something, but it's also, I think for you with what you do at the studio, keeping your name in front of people and showing people, hey, I have something to offer and I believe in it enough that I do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you look at other people, and I don't really have an exact script for my questions here, but if you look at other people, what do you see that holds people back, that keeps them from being successful?
I think knowledge.
Okay. So like the whole Sir Francis Bacon, knowledge is power kind of thing. They just don't know what to do, or?
A little bit of, knowledge is power. I think honing your skills is, plays a big part in that as well. You got to know what you're talking about. You don't want to be like, you don't want to go to a client and, be talking about something and they ask you a question and you don't want to be like, I don't know, let me check on that. You just need to be able to provide an answer.
Yeah. And I think that's really, to me, that's pretty awesome because that's what I always tell people. I'm like, just know more than anybody else and people always pay to learn it from you.
Yeah. So that kind of goes back to that thing is make sure you're not the smartest person in the room type of thing, which is, I feel like there is a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're not, that doesn't mean you're going to be, dumb and you don't know what 2 + 2 is, you know, that means, find a gap of like what you're missing throughout your industry, and then go into one of those bigger rooms and, take notes, listen, talk to somebody,
find that expert,
but listen to someone else, so talk and listen at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons that I love podcasts so much. I love listening to them. And honestly, I love interviewing experts now because there's something else for me to learn. And the day that I believe that there's nothing else for me to learn, there's nothing for me to offer people either.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So thinking about the best piece of wisdom or the best advice that you've been given at any point in your life related to being successful, what do you think the best advice that you have been given has been?
So it's 4 or 5 words long.
Okay.
That's all I have to say. And it comes from my former boss, Alan Sharpenstein, worked with him for many years. And the biggest lesson, okay, there's actually 2, but the biggest lesson is you got to want to.
Oh, that's good.
That's it. I could be sitting for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe just talking to someone else. And if I'm not doing something productive, then I feel like I'm cheating myself out of what I could be doing.
Yeah. You're taking away your own potential.
Yes, exactly. So the second lesson is whenever things get hard, if you try for just a little bit, then I guess not that you can play later, not like the whole work hard now, play later thing. It's more of like, when something gets hard, if you just try to do it now, then it's going to be a lot easier in the future whenever you come back to that next problem.
Yeah. And I think most of the things that are really hard for us are hard up in our head before they're hard in reality. So we look at it and we go, oh my God, I can't do that.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And so we create all these stories of failure. So I love both of those. I mean, you got to want to really plays into the psychology of I'm the kind of person who's going to put myself in a position to always want to be successful. So, we were talking the other day and I said, I really like to give you some advice on staying balanced in life. I don't really know what balanced is necessarily because it's different for everybody. So it's difficult for any one of us to say, oh, if you do this, you're balanced.
Yeah.
So like what you said a minute ago about you got to make some time for yourself to do the things that you really enjoy to do. If you love doing what you do for a living, you never feel like you're working. So like you learned all the streaming and stuff from being Abex, the gamer, and streaming all your content and getting people to follow you there. And then, hey, I could translate this into something I could go make some money at.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you stream people doing video blogs and doing podcasts, and you're You still go do the other thing because it's fun for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
And then when you look at this, every day when you wake up, if you maintain your right motivation that you got to want to, I think that's beautiful. And then I think the other piece that Alan gave you, I guess Alan gave you both pieces.
Yeah.
So that second piece of advice about making sure that you just try a little bit more, because most people give up right before they would have been successful. There's a story of a guy named R.U. Darby in the book 3 Feet from Gold. And R.U. Darby had, made his claim on this mine, and he was digging for gold, and he found this amazing vein, and he wrote back to all his family, went and collected money and hit his mine. And he came back, and they were just bought all this equipment. They start pulling gold out of the ground, and in a few weeks it was gone. The vein was just gone. It was a huge vein of gold, and then it was just gone. So he ends up selling the mine to a junk man along with all the equipment. The junk man goes and hires an expert and says, hey, can you come take a look at this? And this guy was a mining expert. And he came in and looked. He goes, oh, there was a shift in the ground. If you'll dig 3 feet to the right, you'll find the vein. It was the richest vein of gold in California history.
Wow.
And he gave up 3 feet from gold. So that second piece of advice, try just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, I think of the R.U. Darby story every time when I'm like, screw this, I quit.
Yeah. So, for like the modern culture people, or, like the younger crowd that you may have, whenever you said he gave up just before
That
the
3
gold.
feet from gold, yeah.
All right. So the first thing that I thought of was that meme where that guy there's two people, I believe. There's a guy on the top and then a guy on the bottom. Right.
Yeah.
And so he's digging like underground with a little pickaxe, and then he like stops right before he breaks into all the diamonds,
Yeah.
So then like the bottom one is like, if you just went that extra 3 feet,
You'd have gotten it. Yeah. And I think that's a story of most people in life. Some of the advice that I was given when I first started in business is never be smart enough to quit. And I went, wait, what? I thought you're supposed to be smart to be successful. He goes, no. If you're really smart, you just go get a job and work for somebody else and let them have all the stress. But never be smart enough to quit. Always be that tenacious, have that tenacity where you just wake up every morning and you go, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. And I remember a point in my career, I've been in business over 20 years now, maybe 3-4 months in, when I kept having people ask me, what's your backup plan? What's your backup plan? And I finally went, I don't have a freaking backup plan. This is my only plan. I do this or I die.
Yeah, I think having a backup plan is almost like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Really. It keeps you from, trying
Yeah.
or having the want to.
Yeah, you got to want to.
Yeah.
So you got to wake up every day and you got to want to go do what's required to be successful. So if you were going to give a piece of advice to the listeners, something that you think would help them find the soul or the psyche of success, what advice would you give to the listeners?
You got to want to.
Got to want to.
Yeah.
So wake up every day and you got to want to.
Yeah.
And so let me do a follow-up question then. How do you maintain your want to? What do you do to want to every day?
It's really tough. It really is. It's, you wake up and you don't think of it as a job.
Yeah.
Just, kind of going back to like the gaming and the streaming stuff. The moments I would start taking it as a job or taking it too seriously, those were the moments I was doing horrible, not getting any viewers, my content, it showed that, it was just horrible, that I was just trying way too hard.
Yeah.
So the times that, I would just kind of take a breath, maybe take a couple days, take a week, whatever it was, come back, fresh headed, everything. And,
just recenter yourself and go back at it. So maybe it's the reset that we sometimes need. But I was just thinking about something as you were talking. ABEX is an identity.
It is, yeah.
And so when you're gaming and you're streaming your games, it's not your job. It's who you are.
Yeah.
And so if you correlate to what you were just saying, I think you could almost say, don't go to work. Don't have a job. Be the person that is successful doing the thing you're doing.
Yeah.
And so you create your identity, and that's that story about who you are. Everything else gets easy after that.
I made myself a brand. Is what I did, you know? So like, that's what my whole logo is, it's me wearing a set of headphones, because that's who I am. And, the picture that the artist drew it off of, was like one of the favorite pictures that I've used since I've started, gaming and live streaming and all that.
So don't you think you correlate that over to what you just said then? The brand, you're always a brand. I mean, I know for me, one of my struggles early on is I tried to make it, this company name and not about me. And in the end, you don't hire a speaker or a trainer because of the other people. Now, I don't want to be clear about something because I know my other people are going to be listening to this. The other people make it possible for you to be a brand. So your brand is the totality of your company, but people buy you before they buy what you do.
Exactly.
And so they don't hire me as a speaker because they go, oh, you speak? I want to hire you. No, they heard some story or they heard somebody else talking about, oh my God, I heard you, and you read people's faces and it was freaking hilarious and it was awesome.
And that's because you're connecting emotionally with people.
Yeah. So fantastic. So any last parting wisdom you want to share? Because I want to read your face on camera before we go.
Just thank you for, having the opportunity to come on the Psyche of Success. Like I said, that first episode was phenomenal with Damon West, hearing his story and, how he overcame, with his own psyche and,
figuring out how to reshape his thoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
And he had time.
Yeah.
If you hadn't listened to the podcast, he got a life sentence in prison.
It's a nice listen for sure. Like I said, I was going to listen to a couple minutes of it and, found myself 30 minutes later and I was still listening.
Oh, we're done. Yeah. Okay, that was a great podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so several things I see, and I'm going to, from now on, every guest that comes on the show, I'm going to read their face right at the end, kind of give you that. One of the books that I've written is called Faces of Reality, and it's a way that you look at the psychology of a person based on the structure of their face. So when you're looking at his face, you can see this in the camera if you're watching this on YouTube. You notice the eyebrows kind of get crazy on the inside. That means a strong sense of creativity in both his personal and his professional life. That's when the eyebrows do that. The thicker eyebrows means that you're going to project out who you are and what you want the world to see. They're slightly rounded, so that means that you're balanced between task and relationship. You have a ridge that runs across that, which means that you create rules and systems for how you do things. So when you said you create spreadsheets with 30 days of content, yes, 30 days. Yeah, that makes sense because you got that ridge going right there. You also have it where it kind of, when you move your eyes a little bit, it pops forward, and then the two lines come together. So those are visionary lines, which means that you're going to be really good at taking chaos and creating order out of that chaos. Looking at the eyes themselves, you have slight rounding on the left, which means you're a little more of the romantic and sentimental on your personal life. Everything on the left is personal, everything on the right is work. Your eyelid, lower one, flattens out on the right, which means that you're going to be good at sizing people up. So a little less of the sentimental, a little more of the, hey, let's get down to business and get this thing done. You look at the end of the nose, you notice the septum comes down, that center point on the nose. That means that you need a mission for what you're doing. So it can't be just about money, which you explain that in the show as well. It has to be about making a difference and having a lasting impact. Your smile is crooked up to the right. So if things do get tense in the workplace, then you're going to use sarcasm or wit to deflect the tension, kind of reshape things. Good, strong communicator lines. Those are the lines that run around the edge of the mouth and up to the edge of the nose. When they're really high, that means you've had a lot of disappointment. When they're right where they are for you, just means good communicator and you still trust people and still have a good sense of that. Let me see your chin. Okay, square chin. It kind of juts forward. So a square chin means that you judge yourself based on goals and accomplishments. When it pops forward, that means that you are more than willing to share what you're doing in order to make things happen. No line on the chin, so you're not looking for the affirmation. You're looking for the accomplishment itself. And then let me see your ears real quick. So you're going to have the auditory side on the ears. On the left-hand side, you had a shift at about 21, 22 years old, and your perception on life and your personal life. And on the right, the working side, your shift has actually been within the last 12 months on the way that you looked at your working side. Both, you're pretty independent and want to make sure that you're in control of yourself. So that is my reading of you on face reading. If you guys are interested in more of that, make sure you check out my psycheofsuccess.com. I've got a whole e-learning on how to do that, as well as you can go buy the book on Amazon, Faces of Reality. So thank you, Adam, for being on ABEX. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in the future. Obviously, I come here every week to record my podcast, so it's going to be great to see you all the time. You guys take care. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Psyche of Success. Give us a 5-star rating, subscribe, share with your friends, take out billboards about how much you love us if you want, but just make sure to apply the lessons learned and live fully into your potential. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Psyche of Success.